Okay, this is capital budgeting problem number 2. It says an investment project provides cash flows of $1,200 per year for 5 years. What's the project's payback period if the initial cost is $3,000? What about if it's $4,000? Okay, so remember the payback period is just the number of years it takes. It's simple math. Number of years it takes to get your money back. Okay, so you have an initial investment of $3,000. You get $1,200 back every year for 5 years. So after the first year, you still need to get $1,800 back. After the second year, you still need to get $600 back. And then in the third year, you need to get $600 back. You get $1,200, so it only takes a half of that year, so it's 2.5 years is your payback period. You go through the same math here, and it takes 3.33 years. So in this case, if you're just using payback period, you would take project number A. Okay, what is the project's IRR, internal rate of return, if the initial cost is $3,000? What about if it's $4,000? Okay, the internal rate of return is basically you take the cash flows and it figures out at what rate you break even, the cash flows equal 0 when they're discounted back at that rate. So for instance, if it tells you your IRR for something is 10%, that means if you discount the cash flows back at 10%, you break even. So if you had a required return of 9%, remember the higher the interest rate, the more it discounts those cash flows, it makes them worth less. So if you have an IRR, internal rate of return of 10%, and if you've got a required return of 9%, you know at 10% those cash flows equal 0. So at 9% they would be positive, which is good. At 11% they would be negative, which is bad. So that's how you can kind of use the IRR. It basically tells you when the net present value of the cash flows is 0. It's the interest rate or discount rate at which those cash flows present value, net present value I should say, is 0. Okay, so let's just figure this out. Let's go through one of these problems real quick and just kind of remind you how to do these on the calculator. Okay, so it says your cash flows are $1,200 for 5 years. Okay, so and what if your initial cost was $3,000? So hit second cash flow, second clear. That clears all that stuff. Second FV. Okay, so cash flow 0. So it says your initial investment is $3,000. Remember, CFO is always negative because it's money out of your pocket. Remember, cash flows are positive, that means you get money. Cash flows are negative, means you're handing out money. So you're handing out money, so it's a negative. You enter it, and there's only one of those. Okay, now it's C1, and then we know it's $1,200. So put $1,200, and it's for 5 years. You got to hit enter, otherwise you get nowhere. Now the frequency, instead of 1, we know it's for 5 years, so just do it 5 years instead of having to re-enter it 5 times. Okay, so now instead of hitting net present value, you remember we're trying to find out the IRR, the internal rate of return, the rate at which you discount those cash flows to where they equal 0. So hit IRR and hit compute, and so it's telling you at 28.65% those cash flows equal 0. Okay, and then you can go back through. Now this is something that I'll show you just real quick. You've got those same cash flows, but say what if the initial cost is $4,000? So instead of recalculating all that, hit cash flow. Instead of the 3,000, we want 4,000. Remember, this is CFO, so it is negative. Remember, your calculator stores all the other numbers, so those other numbers are still in there. Hit enter. Your cash flow is $1,200 for 5 periods of time. Arrow down. Hit IRR. It's still got the old number on there. Remember, you got to hit compute before it does anything. And so if $4,000 is your initial investment, your IRR is 15.238. Okay? So that is problem number 2.